Isn't that poetic?
Do you believe that, Zena?
And aren't you taking it a bit out of context?
I'm reading it. I mean, I'm reading it.
Well,
okay.
isn't
Hand me that
Jesus...
Holy Bible and I'll read you something too.
Zena, you know what I'm reading. I mean, you know the book. It's page 30
By our
right
standard,
here.
Jesus is the true Prince of Evil.
Will you let me read something from my own book?
Well, let me read it first,
Oh,
okay?
and why is that?
You don't want to... I'm reading...
Why can't I choose things to read as you would choose things from your book carefully
because
to read?
I'm the person conducting the interview right now.
Well, maybe we should interview you.
Survival of the fittest.
I gaze into the glassy eye of your fearsome Jehovah.
Right.
I pluck him by the beard. I uplift a broad axe and split open his worm-eaten skull.
Right.
Did you know who wrote that?
You tell me.
Do you know who Ragnar
No, I don't
Redbeard
know.
is?
Who?
Ragnar Redbeard?
No, yes, Redbeard, yes. He wrote this. Well, your father's re-quoted it here.
Okay.
Whatever the case. Now, this is violent. This is abusive. It is...
To Jehovah?
It's insulting, but beyond the insulting part of it, do you not find any reprehensibility in using this kind of language? Mind you, I don't believe that Buddha is God. I don't believe that Muhammad was a prophet. But I would never write something like this about Muhammad or Buddha.
That's because you feel like you have to please everyone.
No, because I would have some feelings of sensibility. I mean, you don't feel that there's any inciting of any violent rage in people in this type of language?
Obviously there is.
Of course
Well, I'm
there
asking
is.
Zena, do you?
Of course there is.
Oh, you do believe there is the inciting?
There's the inciting of some realization. I wouldn't say of a violent rage. There's the inciting, what I've heard anyway, that people read that and they say, yes, that's the way I've felt all my life.
All right, I want to go through the 9 satanic statements, and I'm going to ask each of you alternately, if you will, to elaborate on them so that there is no misunderstanding.
Should be pretty self-explanatory, but...
Unlike the Christian Bible, the Satanic Bible speaks for itself. It requires no scholars to have councils of Trent to decide what this word meant or that word.
I wouldn't say that the Bible does either, but let's get to the 9 satanic statements, okay? Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence. Zena?
Isn't that self-explanatory? What is indulgence? That you have to be good to yourself before you can adequately be good to others? Is that evil? Is that wrong?
Are there any limits on that indulgence?
There's another section in the Satanic Bible that differentiates indulgence from compulsion.
Okay.
Maybe you'd
and
like
self-destruction.
Would you not, let's suppose that a pedophile's indulgence were the molestation of children? Would you place that under this particular heading here of the first satanic statement, if that's his indulgence?
It's clearly stated in there how we feel about children and animals, and you know it.
I'm asking you.
It says in the Satanic Bible that we revere children and animals above all things.
So there are limitations on the indulgence.
Of course. There are limitations imposed by your own self-discipline and fortitude, not because you believe what you read from God. That's a very primitive and silly way to go about living. We live because we know what is right for us.
You know.
Mm-hmm. And to us, as it says in this...
You've constructed your own individual reality.
And I think it works a hell of a lot better than the Christian one.
Okay. Well, since you talk so much, I'm going to come back to you for number 2. Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams. I think that does need some explanation. What do you mean?
I really don't see how it does need explanation.
What is vital existence?
You don't know what vital existence is?
I'm asking you.
Our life here and now, living for, as I've said, all of the earthly and carnal pleasures. What is a spiritual pipe dream? Looking to some external deity or source for your answers. If something horrible happens to you, you just pass it off and say it's God's will. I'd call that a spiritual pipe dream.
Okay. Nickolas, Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit.
Look at the world as it really is. Don't delude yourself into thinking it's a way that it is not by calling upon holy cant and scripture as your guide to life. Let's look at the real world, look at the human condition as it exists right here and now.
Okay. Number 4. Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. Zena?
Well, I already explained that too, insofar as turning the other cheek. Kindness, if you're kind to me, then obviously I will be kind to you. We treat people as they treat us. If someone's going to be rude to us or treat us inappropriately, then they have to expect that in return. We won't waste our kindness on what we would consider ingrates, and that is being treated with disrespect or rudeness.
Number 5. Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. And let me flip over here to page 33 and also quote in companion to that, quote, "Hate your enemies with a whole heart. If a man smites you on one cheek, smash him on the other. He who turns the other cheek is a cowardly dog."
Doesn't that speak for itself?
Yeah.
What's your
Well,
point?
what would you do?
I'm just asking you. I'm asking you. These are your beliefs.
Right,
Hollywood
those-
Boulevard, and you are attacked by a gang of drug dealers for no apparent reason. What would you do? Would you bow
Pray
down
for
to them
or
and
would
say, "I'll
you
pray
strike
for
them
you"?
back?
Or would you try to do something to survive?
Well, you see, I don't. You're asking. Do you want me to
No,
answer
you
the
asked
question?
me
I'll be
hypothetical
happy to answer the
questions,
question.
so-
You see, I most certainly, if my life were endangered by someone who murderously or violently were attacking me, now some Christians would differ on this. Some would say kneel and pray. I'm not one who would kneel and pray. I don't run 5 miles a morning for nothing. I'd run. I'd get out of there as fast as I could or fight for my life. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about vengeance and revenge.
If you wrong me,
We're-
however you wrong me, I will give you that same wrong back.
But if someone is physically striking you with their fist or hitting you with a steel rod, there is no question in anyone's mind you're being wrong.
Not always so.
But in the abstract, and this is what we get back to earlier, it seems that you reserve the right always to determine who is the wronged party by your natural brute instincts.
Yes,
and what
we
I'm
do.
saying
That's right.
is that the Bible tells us that the heart is deceitful and wicked, and who can know it? And common sense tells us that we all have been mistaken at some point in our lives,
The Bible-
assuming that we were the wronged one, when in fact we may have been the person hurting someone else.
The Bible teaches us to hate our own instincts. The
No,
Bible is
no.
a guidebook to how not to survive.
No.
The hero of the Christian religion is someone who willingly sacrificed themselves. Now, to me, someone who willingly dies on a cross and thinks that's a victory is a neurotic person. I don't worship such a God. So if you want to sacrifice yourself, go ahead. We want to live and survive, and you live by returning a wrong back to the person. It's very
And
simple.
I think that's the irony, too, of all the accusations of our sacrifices, whether they are children or animals or whatever. The whole concept of sacrifice is a Christian concept. Because we don't believe in any anthropomorphic deity, there's no need to sacrifice anything for anything.
Well, we'll get to that. I'd like to come back to that in a moment if I can, please. And if I forget, you please bring it up, all right? I want to get through these statements here. Number 6, Satan represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. Zena?
A psychic vampire is someone who drains you of your vital energy, someone who is constantly looking to you for their support and for their energy. Responsibility to the responsible means if you demonstrate that you have a certain amount of responsibility, you will gain that much more responsibility. Your actions are rewarded by what you achieve or what you acquire, rather than being siphoned off to someone who hasn't deserved them.
You know, Zena, before there was any Nobel Prize for Mother Teresa, and really before most anyone knew who she was, I visited her home for the destitute and dying in Calcutta, and I saw the poor people laying there in the throes of death. I saw her comforting them, touching them, giving them what food and water they needed. Those, by your definition, were psychic vampires because they could give nothing back.
And you don't think Mother Teresa had some ulterior motive
No.
that she wanted these people
I
to...
really don't.
You don't think she wanted them to see her point of view?
No, as a matter of fact,
No,
these
I don't
people
think
could
she
not.
did,
And I don't think.
actually.
As a matter of fact,
Because
speaking
most missions or missionaries want to convert people. They want people to see
save
their...
souls. Isn't that what Christianity is
that's a
designed
presumption
to do?
I think that you people have made, but
Well,
you're
I think it
you're
goes
talking,
deeper
I
than
think
that.
you've
I
made
think-
that presumption, but I think I've visited more mission compounds.
I think
Let me finish.
okay.
I think I've visited more mission compounds around this world than you have. And I remember being in a Bangladesh refugee camp some years ago during that time of bloody war. And I saw a Salvation Army officer standing by the bedside of a woman who had walked 100 miles just to get there to escape the fighting, and she was dying. He could not speak her language. She had moments to live, and I said to him, "You cannot convert her. You know that, don't you?" He said, "Yes, I know that." I said, "Why are you doing it?" He said, "Because I feel it is necessary to offer her a few moments of tenderness and comfort in the last minutes of her life." He had nothing to gain by it.
Well,
Now,
let me
she
say
was
something. Let me say
she
something.
was a psychic vampire
Let
by your
me- okay.
definition.
Underneath the whole Christian theology and the whole organized structure of Christian dogma is what I feel is a masochistic, almost love and wallowing in despair and death. Christians love nothing more than to see suffering so they can go and whine and moan over it and help people and feel how good they are that they're helping people. It's a very morbid
really
religion.
believe that?
You worship a God who's nailed and bleeding to a cross. Everything in the Bible drips with morbidity
Eat
and
his
death.
flesh and drink his blood.
And yet you
There's a
accuse
lot
us of being
morbidity.
morbid. If you want to be around dying and sick people all the time, then you have every right to, but we are not obliged to help these people.
And shouldn't that be a choice? Shouldn't that be I thought this was a free country. Shouldn't that be a personal choice from one individual to the next? Certainly there are going to be people who derive pleasure from doing that. And who are you to say that there are going to be people who don't want to do that? Who are you to say that that's wrong?
Maybe it is a greater evil, when all is said and done, to keep millions of people alive who are not ever going to be productive, who are going to drain all of our resources and create a stagnant world.
But to comfort them in the hours of their death, to offer an act of human kindness.
Well,
That's
what
why
you
there's
are
people
for.
like you. You don't want
You
us
want
there.
us to be like that as well?
You go hug them. I don't want
Well,
to.
if I were that dying person and you were standing over my body, yes, I would want you to be like that. If you were dying...
Just by being a
you know,
human being, you don't deserve
Have
my
you never
love and
suffered
respect.
pain?
Of course. And to those I love that suffer pain, I will comfort those who I like, those who I favor. I'm not everybody's friend.
Well, I'm sure you, Zena, heard the story from the Bible of the Good Samaritan. Are you familiar with that story?
Right.
Do you know what it's about?
To argue this point is
Well, it
just
is-
going
it is-
round
it is-
and round.
no,
because,
it is an
you
important arguable point, because-
Your main concern in Christianity is to help the weak. Christianity was designed as a religion for slaves, after all. Historically, if there is any truth to it, the first followers of Christianity were slaves in Judea. Now, is that not
No,
true?
that is not true.
Who were the first followers of
In
Christianity?
fact, the first followers of Jesus Christ were not only common working people, but some of the most eminent intellectuals of the day, such as Saul of Tarsus, who was...
Well, Saul of
who was-
Tarsus is the person who recreated the Christian religion in his own vision and rewrote the scriptures in the first place.
Well,
he caught on to
I'm
a
sorry,
good
but
thing.
that's hardly historically accurate. You know, I
Well,
wonder...
that's really
Christianity-
interesting, because one Christian will
Christianity-
tell us one thing, and another will tell us a
Christianity
different.
is
Well, what
fine.
did they tell you?
Christianity is fine for people who have this great love for weaklings. Well, we don't have it, so why must we be forced to be a part of your love for all mankind?
Well, you certainly must not be forced. Nobody would force you to do anything. I guess...
Can't you understand that?
I find it
You
difficult to
really
accept...
want us to put up a fight
No,
or put up an
no.
argument,
I just,
but there's no...
Go help them.
I just wonder
think
how
it's a waste of your time.
how you've been able to psychologically insulate yourself in such a way. I cannot. I mean, I have not always been a Christian. And long before I was a Christian, it was just a matter of human responsibility to another creature, though I may not have believed them to be a creature of God as I do now. if they were suffering and they were in pain